How does a husband answer a public dare without raising his voice? What happens when the woman who mocked him in front of friends is handed lawful papers in a crowded lobby while the printer clicks and strangers look away? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Undine Maris, and I am the woman who said love should pass a hard test. I told myself freedom was honest and rules were fear. Gareth, my husband, liked lists and quiet. He asked for respect and calm plans. I said respect was a cage. At work, I told co-workers he watched me. I told my mother wedding stress made him petty. I told my sister I would not live on a leash. I heard my own story and believed I was brave. Small signs stacked up before the fight. 2 mugs sat on opposite counters every morning. A folder labeled household appeared by the toaster. His phone flashed a reminder that said downtown 3:40 p.m., and he dismissed it with one tap. At night, I heard a faint shredder hum and called it paranoia. He slept close to the guest bed, careful and quiet. I called it punishment. I messaged my ex, Rory, and called it closure. When Gareth asked for simple boundaries, I said love should not fear a test. I raised my voice and demanded a pass. I said that if he loved me, he should let me sleep with my ex. I thought bold words would make me right. I woke before the alarm and stood in the kitchen rehearsing points in my head. I told myself I needed proof that love was brave, not cautious. Gareth came in with his work face, the quiet one, and set 2 mugs on opposite ends of the counter. He asked if I wanted tea. I said I wanted air. He nodded, as if air could be listed on a clipboard. I decided to count that as coldness. I fried eggs and spoke about balance and voice. I said a partner should not be scared of old friends. He asked if I meant Rory. I said I meant freedom. He asked for respect and calm plans. I said respect was a cage word when used by men. He moved a notepad from the toaster and placed a folder there instead. It said, household on the spine in clean letters. I laughed and said homes did not need labels like a library. He said the week was busy and organizing helped. I rolled my eyes and tasted victory. On his phone, a small alert flashed and was gone. I saw just enough. Downtown 3:40 p.m. He dismissed it with one tap. I asked if we had a meeting. He said he had an errand. I said secrets hurt trust. He said people could have privacy and still love someone. I told myself that was a trick sentence used by people who wanted to hide. At the table, he opened his laptop. A spreadsheet showed small boxes with initials and dates. He minimized the window when I stepped closer. I asked if he was counting my mistakes. He said it was household tracking. I said tracking sounded like a leash. He closed the lid and asked if I needed the table for wedding seating. I said permission was not required. He said he was trying to be polite. I said politeness was a bland way to control women. Before work, I tried on the short white dress I planned to wear for a party soon. I took photos in the mirror and sent one to a friend. Then I scrolled to Rory's profile. I typed congratulations on a new booking and added a smile. He replied with a thumbs up. I told myself the message was closure and growth. I did not think about the way my stomach lifted when I saw his name. Back in the kitchen, Gareth rinsed the mugs and returned them to the exact same far-apart spots. I snapped a picture to send to my sister later. I planned to say that small gaps reveal big truths. The thought pleased me. I wanted a clean story where little props held big meaning. The household folder stayed by the toaster like a square reminder of his style. I told myself it stood there to judge me. My mother called and asked if we were excited. I said we were very excited, and that stress made me dramatic. She laughed and said, all couples fight before weddings. I told her our fights had a purpose. She said peace is better than purpose. I felt annoyed by her softness and ended the call early. I messaged my sister, Selah. and wrote that Gareth was already acting like a hall monitor. Sila asked what he had done. I wrote a long line about separate mugs and minimized spreadsheets. She sent back one word: reach. I muted the thread. When Gareth left for a late morning call, I walked to the office nook to print a schedule. A faint smell of toner hung in the air. I pressed the power button, and the printer whirred, then spat out a blank page. I checked the tray and laughed to myself. I opened the desk drawer to look for paper and heard a click. It stopped halfway because it was locked. I told myself he was keeping something from me. The thought felt like fuel. Under the blue taxes folder, I saw a tiny USB drive taped to the wood with today's date on white tape. I poked it with a fingernail, then left it. I wanted him to notice that I knew things. At lunch, I ate standing at the counter. I drafted a note to post later about radical honesty and the freedom to be complex. I imagined the likes. I imagined friends cheering the way they always did when I used big words. Gareth came back and asked if we could go over bills. I said he loved paper more than people. He said paper keeps people safe. I said safety was a slow poison. He put his hands in his pockets and nodded as if he agreed to my poem. That angered me more than any shout. He asked if we could set simple boundaries with exes. I said boundaries were not needed when love was strong. He said love and caution could stand in the same room. I said caution made me feel small. He said he did not want me to feel small. I said then he should prove it. He waited. I lifted my chin and told him love should pass a test. I added that if he loved me, he should let me sleep with my ex and trust me to come back. He stared at the sink and breathed once. He said he wanted respect, not tests. I said tests show truth. He said truth had already shown itself. I called that a threat. He said it was a boundary. I said boundary was a word men hide behind when they cannot keep up. He walked to the bedroom and placed his pillow near the edge of the bed. I followed and stood in the door. I said he was punishing me with distance. He said he was giving both of us space so we did not say cruel things. I said I did not fear cruelty, I feared boredom. He said then I should rest. I said resting was for people who gave up. He nodded like a clerk signing a form. He changed his shirt and folded the old one in neat lines. The care he took made me feel judged. Late afternoon light slid across the floor. I stood on the balcony and filmed the street for a story. I typed a caption about choosing what breathes you back to life. I almost tagged Rory, then didn't. Inside, Gareth stacked mail and flipped one pile face down. I asked if a bill scared him. He said nothing scared him. He liked order. I said order kills touch. He said touch needs trust. I said trust needs freedom. He said freedom without care is chaos. I said chaos is how new things are born. I walked away before he could use another calm sentence. In the evening, we ate soup in quiet. I wrote a long message to my friend about planning a rooftop night soon. She replied with star emojis and said the city would love me. I believed that. I pictured lights, a good angle and music that made me taller. I pictured myself rising above caution and being praised for it. I wanted that feeling more than I wanted a small piece. After dishes, Gareth opened his laptop again. The spreadsheet returned and vanished when I approached. I commented that hiding screens makes trust impossible. He said I did not ask. I accused. I said accusation was what men called curiosity when women were right. He stood and carried his mug to the sink. He set it down near the stove. My mug had migrated back to the fruit bowl side. The distance between them felt like tape on a floor. I told myself he was drawing a line I would not obey. Close to midnight, I went to the hallway for water. A soft mechanical hum came from the other room, not loud, steady. It stopped when I reached the door. I turned the knob and found nothing obvious, just the household folder squared to the table edge and his keys aligned in the dish. I told myself he was building a case where I looked wild and he looked sane. I decided I would write the case first and make it prettier. When I returned to the bedroom, he was asleep on the far edge, facing the wall. I lay awake and rehearsed new lines, stronger ones. I planned to speak about freedom at work so I could hear the words bounce in a room. I wanted proof. I wanted witnesses. I wanted to be right. In the grey light before dawn, his phone lit on the dresser. A text preview flashed from a contact saved as only a lock emoji. It blinked once and disappeared before I could read the words. My chest tightened, then lifted with a bright idea. I told myself privacy had to cut both ways. I decided to take my test to the public world and call it honesty. I set an early alarm and began writing a post in my head. The clinic lobby doors slid open, and I stepped into the smell of eucalyptus and hand soap. I set my tote on the front desk and told the other receptionist that wedding planning was a full-time job by itself. She said the schedule looked heavy and asked if I could handle walk-ins. I said I could handle anything. I wanted the room to hear strength in my voice. I wanted witnesses for the story I was building. I logged into the appointment screen and added a small note to my status that said limited calls. A patient asked if insurance would cover a brace. I answered with my best customer voice and slid the form across the counter. When the line thinned, I opened my personal phone under the desk and typed a new post about freedom tests. I kept the words clean and bold. I said love should not fear old friends. I said rules were fear in costume. Heart started to tap. A coworker leaned over and read, then said the caption was spicy. I said truth could be spicy. Mika from billing rolled by in her chair and asked if Gareth liked parties. I said he liked lists. She laughed and said lists had value. I said value was a dull word. I wanted to drown any balance before it formed. I sent a message to Rory that said the rooftop night looked close. He sent a quick thumbs up and a line about the set he would play. I felt the small lift I always felt when he replied fast. I told myself the lift was just nostalgia and had no weight. Around 10, my manager Nadia stepped out of the back office and asked if I could meet her for a quick word later. She pointed to her calendar. I said I was free after the noon rush. She thanked me and closed the door. My stomach tightened, then tried to make a joke of it. I told the other receptionist that managers only called quick words when they were bored. She smiled with her mouth closed and did not answer. I checked our shared cloud drive to download a clinic brochure. A small pop-up flashed on my screen from the personal side of the account. File uploaded successfully. I did not know the file name, but I knew the feeling. I clicked away and pretended I had not seen it. On my lunch break, I opened my personal drive and saw 2 new folders I did not remember, Archive A and Archive B. I told myself Gareth was packing memories like a museum guide. I told myself he wanted to make me the wild exhibit and keep his own face calm. My phone buzzed with a call labeled private. I let it ring out and slid it back under the keyboard. Then I typed in the team chat that wedding stress made my fiancé act like a hall monitor. An aide sent a laughing face. Another coworker sent no reply. I decided silence meant silent agreement. I added that men who loved you should not fear old flames. Mika asked if I meant Rory. I said I meant freedom. The chat went still. A patient dropped a crumpled prescription slip and asked for help. I helped him. My hand stayed steady while my head wrote more lines. When he left, I opened my front camera and checked my face. The overhead light was harsh. I took a selfie anyway and posted it to my story with a caption about oxygen and trust. A cousin replied with a fire emoji. My mother sent a heart and a line telling me to rest. I did not answer my mother. I wanted the arena, not the kitchen. Near noon, the clinic's public page popped up on a staff laptop at the end of the desk. A partner gym had shared an event list. In the grid sat a glossy flyer for the rooftop night with Rory's name in big letters. A staffer pointed and asked if the club was safe. I said clubs were safer than small minds. She looked away. I told myself people hated brave women. I told myself I was brave. Nadia waved me into the small HR room. The room had no art, only a plant that looked cleaned once a week. She asked if home was stable. I said yes, and that Gareth was just anxious. She said the clinic wanted to avoid being linked to personal drama. I said nothing at the clinic would be touched by my life. She asked me to keep tagged posts separate from work hours. I said I understood and thanked her for caring. She said she also wanted to check on my support system. I said my friends were great. She said great friends protect your future. I smiled because I did not like the sentence. She closed by reminding me of the code of conduct. I nodded and left with a light step so she would think the talk settled me. Back at the desk, I messaged Selah and said the clinic tried to police Joy. She wrote that policy was not to police. It was a fence on a cliff. I told her the view was worth it. She wrote that falls hurt. I muted the thread again. I sent a longer message to Rory about the vibe of the night. I asked him to play an old track because it made me feel alive. He said he would. At 2, the waiting room slowed. I ate a granola bar and scrolled comments under my morning post. Strangers praised my honesty. One woman said I was brave for wanting an open heart. I liked that comment and pinned it. A friend wrote that courage might be quieter than I thought. I ignored her. I preferred the loud praise. Gareth texted and asked if the apartment needed anything from the store. I typed back that the apartment needed air. He replied with a short, okay. The short okay sat in my chest like a small rock. I wanted him to rise to my bait. I wanted a scene I could win. Calm gave me nothing to grab. I told myself calm was punishment for women like me. A courier dropped off clinic forms. I signed and stacked them. The smell of warm paper slid into my nose. It made me think of Gareth's jacket last night. I shook off the image. The other receptionist asked if I was coming to after-work drinks. I said I had plans. She asked if plans meant the rooftop. I said it did not, then smiled in a way that said maybe. She smiled back in a way that said she would watch. In the late afternoon, I checked my personal inbox and found a new message from Nadia. The subject line read, follow-up. She asked to put 15 minutes on the calendar next week to discuss boundaries and brand risk. My chest felt hot. I opened the message and then deleted the preview box so I could pretend it did not exist. I told myself cancel culture lived in office chairs. I told myself the clinic would thank me later when my story made them look modern. A patient's mother asked why our prices had changed. I explained the new chart and gave her a discount code. She thanked me. I liked the way problem and solution lined up so neatly. I wished hearts could be managed like codes. At 4, the lobby quieted to a low hum. I opened our shared cloud again on my phone. Another tiny banner blinked. File uploaded successfully. I tapped it away before I could see the file name. I told myself Gareth was making backup folders because he feared loss. I told myself my test could cure that fear. I wanted a clean arc. Dare, applause, return, relief. I believed in that shape because it made me the hero. I stood to refill the water jug, and on my lock screen a notification slid down from a public page. It was a tagged teaser from the club's account. The square showed Rory on a stage with my name in the caption. The tag included my clinic's city and a winking line about Freedom Night. A phlebotomist walking past glanced at my phone and raised her eyebrows. I said the internet loved to play. She said the internet never forgets. Nadia stepped out of her office again and asked if I had a minute now, not next week. I said I could talk at the end of shift. She said it would not take long. I followed her, holding my face steady. She closed the door and asked if I understood that being tagged in nightlife posts during work hours could confuse patients about our brand. I said the world was modern. She said policy was older than hashtags. I asked if she wanted me to delete Joy. She said she wanted me to protect my job. I said I would be careful. She thanked me and let me go. I came back to the desk, and before I sat, my phone buzzed again. The club posted a story with a countdown sticker. A friend tagged me and wrote that I was finally living true. I felt the rush I always chased. I typed a reply with a crown emoji. Then, The clinic chat pinged, with a short note from Nadia, reminding everyone to keep personal posts off shared devices. The other receptionist read it and avoided my eyes. I told myself I could fix optics with a louder heart. I told myself people only got upset when they wished they were brave too. I packed my tote and checked my lipstick in the camera. I planned lines for later about trust and tests. I practiced saying that love without freedom was just fear in a nice address. As I stepped toward the elevator, the operations coordinator called my name and said the manager wanted a quick word before I left. At the same time, my lock screen lit with a tagged photo from the club, my name bold under Rory's flyer. The image blinked like a dare. The coordinator waited by the door, and I took a breath that tasted like mint and trouble. The rooftop looked like a second sky. Lights crossed above us in clean lines, and the DJ booth sat like a little ship. I walked in with my friends and held my shoulders high. People turned and clapped, in that easy way crowds clap when the night wants a star. Rory lifted a hand from behind the board and nodded at me. I felt the small jump I always chased. I told myself the jump was proof that I was alive, not proof that I was reckless. We took the table closest to the booth. Maya slid a bucket of sparkling water in front of me and said the night belonged to us. I said the night belonged to choices. She tapped her glass like a bell and pointed to the floor. I told myself she was reading my mind. I wanted a moment that would become a story. I wanted a story that would become a defense. If I could make the scene big enough, maybe my words tomorrow would feel like truth. Rory eased an old track into the mix, the one that always pulled the room into one slow wave. People turned their faces to the booth and moved without thinking. I let the bass step into my chest. I thought about Gareth's lists and the two mugs far apart on our counter. I told myself lists could not hold a person. I told myself space was proof of cruelty, not proof of care. I said in my head that love without freedom was just fear in a nice address. The chant started near the bar and rolled forward. It asked for a toast. Maya stood and lifted her phone to the ceiling like a lantern. She said we would speak the truth and we would do it loud. I stood and held my glass at shoulder height. I spoke about honesty and breath. I said love should not be scared of old sparks. I said tests reveal strong hearts. The room cheered because the rhythm told them when to cheer. A small, fast pride rushed into my throat. I liked the shape of it. A server came with tiny sparklers in a bucket, and everyone leaned in. A woman I did not know asked if my husband liked nights like this. I said he liked policies. Laughter hit the table in a soft wave. I let it carry me a little farther than I planned. I felt safe because the room was mine. I forgot, or chose to forget, that room's record. Rory leaned from the booth and asked if I wanted fresh air on the patio while he switched the track. I said air was my theme. The smoking patio was a metal rectangle with a view. The door latch clicked behind us with that sharp sound metal makes when it thinks it is important. A couple stood by the rail and pretended not to listen. City lights pooled under our feet like a shallow river. I said the skyline made me brave. Rory said old times still fit us. I said marriage would not choke me. He said good, then waited. My phone buzzed in my hand. Gareth had sent a text that asked if he should send a car at midnight. He asked if I felt safe. He added a gentle line about the week being long. I read it twice because the words were so calm they sounded like air from a different planet. I told myself calm was a trick to make me feel ashamed. I put the phone face down on the ledge. I said to Rory that trust should hold even with old heat nearby. He nodded the way he nods when a beat lands. I called that agreement. The chant for the toast grew louder through the wall. Maya poked her head out and waved us back. People on the patio shifted and pulled out their phones like a reflex. I heard the soft beep of a recording app start on one of the devices near the heater. I looked up at the sky so I would not think about it. I told myself having proof would help me later because proof would show I was brave, not cruel. It was a silly belief, but it felt like armor. Inside, the crowd squeezed near the booth. I stood in the middle and lifted my glass again. I spoke about tests and faith. I said I would not be smaller for comfort. The room answered with a roar because the track paused in a perfect pocket. A camera flash cracked like a tiny piece of lightning. I felt bigger than my own body. I felt like the good kind of trouble. Rory brushed my shoulder with his hand. The movement was light, practiced, almost polite. I let it stay. I told myself letting it stay was a symbol, not a decision. I said symbols are allowed in grown life. I felt the people watching and decided I could shape what they saw. My heart ran fast, but I called it music. Someone near the bar shouted that freedom looked good on me. I pretended not to hear the word that would come next when the cheering stopped. Cost. We leaned toward each other, and I did the thing I already planned to name as a test. I kissed him. I kept my eyes mostly closed, so I could imagine the angle was kind. The cheer rose. A coworker from the clinic had just reached the doorway with 2 friends. She lifted her phone halfway and then all the way. Her mouth opened a little. I saw her, and I smiled as if we were in on a joke. Maybe I thought if I looked confident enough, she would call it art. The elevator bell dinged down the hall, clear and bright. The patio door latch clicked again as more people came in from the night air. Those small metal sounds made the moment feel like it had a stamp. I looked back at the ledge where I had left my phone. A shared banner slid across the top of the lock screen, one of those mirrored notifications from Gareth's calendar. It read, "Meeting, personal." The words were clean, dull, steady. I told myself he was planning a sweet surprise or organizing something to make the wedding smoother. I let the thought calm the small, sharp thing that had started under my ribs. My friends pulled me into a group photo. I stood between Maya and Rory. I made the face that always worked online. The flash hit again. It scrapped the haze off the moment and left edges. I heard my own laugh and was surprised by how bright it sounded. Someone shouted that the clip was already uploading. I told myself upload speed was not fate. Rory went back to the booth and brought the volume up. I posted a short video that framed my speech and not the kiss. I added a caption that said, "Brave love does not need to hide." I believed it while I typed it. Believing felt like proof. A person near the heater said the camera caught everything. I said the camera liked drama. He said the internet liked blood. I pretended I did not hear. The night stretched long. I moved between the floor and the metal rectangle outside. I ignored 2 more texts from Gareth. I told myself silence would train him to accept my pace. Maya said the city would talk tomorrow. I said talk helps growth. She looked at me as if I had a splinter I would not allow her to pull. Close to closing, a thin wind pushed through the patio and lifted my hair. I felt both light and heavy. I told myself the worst part was past. I told myself context would save me. Inside, the stranger who had beeped a recording earlier checked his phone and smiled at a notification. He tilted the screen to show a friend. They nodded like people who just knew something would travel far. We left as the staff stacked chairs. Rory hugged me with a promoter's quick grip and said the set had been clean. I said the moment had been honest. He said the city loves a show. I said the city should love courage. He said courage and chaos looked the same online. I did not like that sentence and moved away. I got into a rideshare with Maya. We filmed our shoes and posted a loop. I did not watch my mentions because I wanted to sleep inside my own version for a few more hours. I told myself the clip, if it surfaced, would make me look bold, not cruel. I told myself the room had understood the test. Maya did not speak for 3 blocks. She finally said the light made everything look softer than it was. I said soft was fine if it helped people learn. I slept late and woke to the sharp hum of my phone on the nightstand. My face stayed still for a second before I turned it over. The club page had posted a new clip. The frame froze on my face turned toward Rory. The caption used a heart and my name. A view counter jumped like a small animal. I set the phone down and pressed my palm flat on the quilt. In the hallway, a neighbor's door closed with a gentle thud. Somewhere below the floor, an elevator bell chimed through the shaft. The sounds stacked on each other until they felt like one long note. The group chat began to ping in a steady rhythm. A coworker sent a private message with only 3 words. "This is public." I told myself public could be managed. I told myself context could be poured over a video like warm light. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and saw the 2 mugs already set in their far places. The sight knocked something small loose in my chest. I decided I would face family first and control the story. My phone buzzed again as a new tag appeared under the clip. The light from the screen felt cold, even in the warm room. The family restaurant had a long table dressed with paper runners and small candles that smelled like lemon. My mother waved me toward the center and said the table was better if I sat where people could see me. I said I was fine anywhere. Salah took a seat on my left and watched me, the way a nurse watches a patient who claims the pain is gone. Gareth arrived last with his parents and sat near the far end. He greeted me with a nod that said nothing extra. I told myself the nod proved his cold heart. I told myself I would win the room before he turned anyone against me. Menus stood like shields. A cousin asked if the rooftop clip was real. I said it was a playful moment from a camera with a fast finger. The cousin looked down and said people were talking. I said people always talk when women take a breath. Across the plates, Marjorie folded her napkin into a clean strip and placed it exactly parallel to the fork. Hugh asked if the wedding date had changed. I said the same date and the same plan. He said, plans need trust. I smiled like trust was a thing I handed out on request. Appetizers arrived. The server asked about drinks, and the sweet smell of citrus followed her tray. My phone on my lap showed a new tag from the club page. I slid it face down. Salah asked if I had spoken with Gareth fully. I said I had told him the kiss was a test and that love should not fear tests. She said tests hurt people. I said tests reveal truth. From the corner, a younger cousin snorted into his glass and hid the reaction with a cough. The table went bright and then dim again, the way rooms do when a truth moves through them. Gareth thanked the server for water. When he took off his jacket and hung it on the chair, a faint smell of printer toner reached me. It felt like a ghost from the apartment. I told myself he had been printing budgets like always. I wanted the smell to mean nothing. I spoke louder and said modern vows can hold mistakes if the base is strong. My mother asked for the breadbasket and told me to drink water. I said I had never been more hydrated in my life. Her mouth smiled, but her eyes did not. A niece passed a phone to another cousin and whispered. Salah asked me again if I wanted to make a full apology. I said I would apologize when people admitted they judged me harder than they ever judged a man. Marjorie kept folding and unfolding the edge of her napkin. She asked in a steady voice if I understood why Gareth was quiet. I said he liked control more than connection. She said silence is not always control. I said in this case it was. The main dishes arrived, and the safe conversation returned for a few minutes. I talked about photography packages and playlists as if those choices could heal a broken week. Gareth asked the server for an extra plate for sharing. He looked down, not at me. I told myself the down look was a performance. I told myself he wanted me to feel small. After the check, we walked to the park 2 blocks away. Evening light drew a gold line on the slides and made the swings look like a soft painting. Tobin ran to me and asked if I could push him. I said of course and held the chain. He swung in slow arcs, while Sella stood nearby with her arms folded. Marjorie and Hugh watched from the bench, their hands a careful distance apart. My mother told me the air would help my headache. I said I had no headache. She said the air would still help. Tobin spoke over his shoulder and asked if Uncle Gareth was sad because Auntie kissed a different man. The swing slowed. The words dropped like a small stone in water and made clear circles. I said adults make mistakes in stories and then fix them. He asked if that meant the story was still happy. I said yes, because the hero learns. Gareth stepped forward and tied Tobin's loose lace and said he would get ice cream later if the grown-ups needed time. He did not look at me. I told myself the calm was a weapon. I told myself I would not let silence win. We walked back toward the apartment. On the balcony, 2 chairs waited, but one cushion was gone. Gareth went inside and placed 2 mugs on the kitchen counter in their usual far places. I followed him and said distance was dramatic. He said distance kept the room quiet. I said quiet was not life. He said life also needed respect. I said respect was a cage word. He did not answer. He set his keys in the bowl. A new, unfamiliar key hung from the ring with a dull shine. I asked what the key was for. He said it was new. I laughed and said bunker plans were overkill. He said nothing. I walked to the office nook and opened the printer tray. It sat empty, but a fine smell of toner hung in the air again. I pulled the top drawer to look for paper. The drawer met resistance. As I stepped forward, I heard the lock finish its turn with a small click, like a sentence closing. My cheeks flushed. I asked if he was hiding something. He said he was organizing. I said organizing looked like secrets in a better coat. He said we could talk after dinner. I said this was dinner. He said then we could talk now if I wanted a calm talk. I said calm talks were dodges. Selah came by to pick up a scarf she had left. She stood in the doorway and asked if I was ready to be honest in full words. I said honesty was alive in my test, and that people who love should let a person breathe. She said I kept changing the meaning of love to fit the day. I said she always took his side. She said she took the side of the future. I told her to stop judging. She said she was not a judge, she was a sister. She refused to take sides and said we both made choices. She left the scarf on the chair and left. My mother called. She asked if Sunday lunch was still planned. I said it was. She asked if the rooftop kiss was as small as I claimed. I said it was theatre. She went quiet for a breath. She said she hoped I would choose honesty soon. The sentence did not lift or press. It just stood there. While I held the phone, another call arrived from an unknown number. The device vibrated in my hand. I let it ring out and told myself it was spam. In the hallway, a low mechanical hum started and stopped again, faint and sure, like the night before. I raised the TV volume. I told myself I still controlled the story. I told myself tomorrow would be mine if I spoke loud enough. I went to the supermarket early and moved fast with a basket so no one would stop me. In the cereal aisle, a neighbor from our building looked at my face, looked at her phone, and then looked back at the boxes. I told myself she was rude, not curious. At checkout, the cashier asked if I was excited for the wedding. I said yes, and added that the internet loved to twist play into crime. She said people had time on their hands. I smiled like a person above gossip and paid. As I slid my card, my phone lit with a missed call labeled private. I let it fade and told myself spam-like drama. Back home, I set the bag on the counter and saw 3 slim binders on the shelf. The spines read, Home, Auto, Bank. They were new. Gareth stood by the bookcase and said he was sorting before the week got heavy. I said normal couples got messy before vows. He said he preferred calm. I said calm looked like distance. He did not answer. He placed my mug near the fruit bowl and his mug by the stove. The space between them looked measured, like he used a ruler. I walked to the office nook to print a photo order. The printer whirred and spat a single blank page. The faint smell of toner reached me again. I opened the top drawer and felt the lock catch. I called into the other room and asked if he had the key. He said he was organizing and would move things later. I said organizing was just hiding with better fonts. He did not respond. On the desk, his laptop screen glowed. Tabs sat in a neat row. Storage options, delivery tracking, notary near me. At the edge of the calendar, I saw a small block that read, Downtown, 11:10 a.m. I asked if he had a surprise planned. He said he had personal errands. I said, Dull secrets were still secrets. A cloud banner popped on our shared tablet. File uploaded successfully. I tapped it away like a fly. I told myself he was archiving grocery lists to make me look dramatic. I opened our wall planner to mark shoe fittings and saw a date ringed in red with no label. Beside it, a sticky note said, "Bring forms." I pulled the corner up and then pressed it back because I did not want to give him the pleasure of seeing it crooked. At noon, I met Maya for coffee near the gym. She asked if the video would die down. I said the city had a short memory when a woman looked good. She said memory gets longer when a room hears a toast. I told her to help me fix optics instead of fussing. She asked if I had told Gareth sorry without saying the word test. I said I would not grovel for honest air. She said air did not kiss people. I pretended to check the time. I changed in the gym locker room and tried on my dress with the honest lighting. A woman from our block stood by the lockers and said she hoped the wedding stayed on. I said it would. She asked if the man in the clip was a friend. I said he was work. She made a small sound that could be either kindness or warning. A staffer walked past and showed another woman her phone, a copy of the clip inside a private group. I told myself people were bored. In the parking garage, footsteps echoed even when no one was there. I found Gareth at the trunk with a clipboard. He asked for the spare key fob and said he was doing inventory. I said inventory tasted like iron. He said he wanted a record of shared items. I said we were not a warehouse. He said lists help during stress. I handed over the fob with a flourish and said, "Take all the little metals if it made him feel safe." He placed it in a small tray. Our car sat facing the street instead of the wall. I asked if he planned a quick exit. He said he liked to be ready. I said ready sounded like running. He said ready sounded like care. Back upstairs, I checked my inbox. Nadia from the clinic had sent a note asking to set a follow-up next week. I closed the email without replying. I told myself being quiet was a power. I posted a soft photo of my hand on the balcony rail with a caption about radical honesty. Comments flowed. Some said I was brave. A few asked if Gareth was okay. I liked the brave ones and left the others sitting there. Evening slid in. I passed the wall planner again and stared at the red circle. Gareth walked by and adjusted the binders by a millimeter. I said he loved paper more than people. He said paper kept people from being hurt twice. I said poetry did that better. He said poems do not sign anything. The sentence made my shoulders tense. I said he was being dramatic with his quiet. He said quiet was a choice when noise solved nothing. I opened the balcony door so the room would stop feeling like a file cabinet. He joined me and handed me my mug. We looked at the street. A car idled and then moved on. The city glowed like a screen. I said we could go to counseling. He said he had meetings already. I asked what kind. He said personal. I said mystery was childish. He said clarity would come soon. I said suspense hurt. He did not give me more. Inside, I checked the printer again. It stayed stubborn and silent. I thought about the clip and the cheers and told myself I was still right. I told myself the story would bend if I pushed hard. I walked back to the balcony and said a calm apology from him would help the internet cool. He said he would not debate online. I said then he should tell the family I was still the choice. He said he would not run PR on my behalf. Silence went long and thin. Down the hall, the elevator dinged and then stopped. A neighbor's steps came near and paused by our door. The pause felt like a person listening for a fight. The steps moved on. I said I hated how this week turned small things into signs. He said small things were always signs. We only noticed now. I told him the wedding could still be perfect if he would let the storm pass. He said the storm had already done its work. I asked if he forgave me. He said forgiveness and plans are not the same. I asked what he meant by plans. He looked out at the street. He said he would handle matters properly. The way he said properly landed in my chest like a key turning. I laughed a little too loud and said big words made him sound like a robot. He said he was finished with speeches. He lifted his mug, set it down, and went inside. Behind the door, I heard nothing except my own breath and the faint click of something being placed in order. Then, again, footsteps paused outside our door, listening, before continuing down the hall. I carried roses into the courthouse lobby at lunch because I wanted a public apology to look brave. Security asked my name, and I said it. Gareth stood near the information desk with a man in a dark blazer. The man confirmed my name and said he had documents for me. I said this was not needed. He said service would be complete when I received them. The printer near the counter clicked and spooled badges while people moved around us. He placed a slim envelope in my hand. I saw clean pages inside and a heading about a petition to dissolve the marriage with temporary orders for money and possession. My stomach dropped like an elevator. Gareth said we would use email only, and he said there was a proposed schedule for picking up personal items and for access to shared things. He said there would be no hallway talks and no late-night calls. I said he could speak to me privately. He said the process would speak now. A clinic donor walked past and looked away. The guard offered a chair. I stood. Gareth thanked the server and the guard and turned toward the elevators. I felt the roses slip. The papers stayed in my hand while petals hit the floor. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.